Bulldog.
Terrier.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will have to now fire all my guns at you. You failed the test. She's one of those... Chesty! Chesty! Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan.
Yep, it's us. We're back again, here to talk about a sci-fi show from that Yum Yum point of view. What a point of view that is, the Yum 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 Yum. Who would have said it in this episode? There's many candidates. We'll get to it, but let's go through the usual business first. I'm Ryan, you're Rachel.
Yep.
We're married at the time of this recording, which is very important to note down. We don't know, anything could happen by the time this releases, Rachel. Anything could happen. You could die. I could divorce you.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity? What? You could be dead.
Yeah.
You could divorce. Yeah.
In perpetuity, there could be a variety of things.
Oh, a variety of things. A bunch. It's really the toss of a coin. So, of what could happen.
That makes me uncomfortable. I didn't think it was that close to 50-50.
Well, you didn't. You should take a chance. So we are here to talk about a television show. I have seen Space Above and Beyond before, and Rachel, you have not seen this show in your lifetime, except for the pilot. You saw the pilot with me a couple years back. You weren't interested, but now I've dragged you into the main series, and here we are. 3 episodes in to the main show of Space Above and Beyond. So people, we are here to talk about Space Above and Beyond. We always recommend that you should check out the episode itself. This series is available on various places. I imagine you can buy it or you can watch it. Sometimes it's on YouTube. I don't know if it's there currently, but we have the DVDs.
Just like our marriage.
Oh,
you don't know
we
whether
don't know.
It exists or
we
not.
don't know. It could be. It's up in the air like that coin, flipping. But we have the DVDs, and the DVDs are actually quite cool. This particular episode we'll be discussing, Rachel will give us the DVD description in a moment, had the commentary track for this, which had Glenn Morgan, it had Kristen Cloak, and it had Lainey, I'm forgetting her last name, but she plays Vanessa.
Yep.
So they had some interesting things to say that I may sprinkle in the discussion, but we are Yum Yum because, Star Trek Discovery, that television series, had a character that said Yum Yum, and we thought it was very funny. So we named ourselves after it. And we did.
No, I was...
Stop denying. You're denying. You doubt. Is there? You know how there's doubting Thomas? Which one? Oh, it was Peter, wasn't it? He denied Christ 3 times, yeah? That's what happened. It was Peter, right? And that's why Peter is at the gate of heaven, right? Letting people in because he doesn't think he's worthy of being in himself. Or at least he was unworthy of being crucified the correct way. I think he was crucified upside down because he didn't want to be the same way as Jesus because he was unworthy because he denied him. But this isn't a rundown of the Bible. We're here to talk about which episode of Space Above and Beyond, Rachel?
The dark side of the sun. Would you like to hear the DVD description?
I am hungry to hear the DVD description.
Shane is chosen to lead a mission against a group of silicates. Artificial intelligent rebels who not only killed her parents years ago, but are determined to destroy all human life.
This unit is still functional.
We got what we need.
If any AI is capable of recalling any AI event, then this one can tell me why they killed my family.
You got another family to keep alive.
So, overall relationship with this one, I remember this episode very vividly. This is the one that I always assume was the first episode of the show because it, to me, captures beautifully what I like about Space Above and Beyond. It has a perfect balance of tone. It has a great use of the ensemble cast while still focusing in on one person in particular to be the character study. It has a military slash sci-fi plot to frame all of this around. So we have them, they're going to this place to guard it, and wouldn't you know it, the sci-fi foe of a main character's past also happens to be here, and it allows all of this to hash out. It is also a great example of how the show does world building and character building. This really tells you who Vanson is and what her central thing will be in the series, this recurring motif for her. And this is what I remember. This is more of the Space Above and Beyond that I like than the first 2 episodes we've watched. And this doesn't even involve the war itself. This is, in fact, calling back to a previous war fought in this universe. So, overall, I'm a big fan of this one, and I am keen to hear your takes on it, Rachel.
I think that this is the episode I've enjoyed the most. And it had the least to do with West.
But he was actually very good here.
He was good.
Like, he was actually a good character.
He wasn't the focus. Shane was. And we got a good sprinkling of all of the characters. Like, I really like the stuff with Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Like him just being a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But so arrogant in a very strange sort of way.
He's very clueless.
Mm.
But he's once he gets tipped off on something, he kind of runs with it, like how we find, like when he finds out the silicate lore dump, which is for us, the audience, he then plays up with that with the rest of the episode, like a person does when they've just gotten it. They go, oh, I think I understand it. And you see he doesn't really understand what's at play.
No, like that, still that naivety of him coming through, like being subjected to the world, not experiencing it.
Yeah. This is really a coming-of-age story for him, in a manner of speaking, in which he has a very limited view of the world. We know from this episode, even hammering it in further, that he was born and raised to fight a foe that by the time he was created into the world, that foe no longer existed. He does not even need to know who they were and what their motives are. Yet that's the reason he exists. Isn't that really sad to think about?
Yeah.
He existed for a sole purpose, and by the time he came about, that purpose was irrelevant, and he doesn't even understand the motivations of the people he was raised to fight. Which I think is rather damning. But you were saying this is an episode that you like the most. West is on the periphery, and it is allowing some more of a deeper look into our other characters, even if they are the side pieces to this story, like with Cooper being a side piece here.
Yeah. I think it's a very well balanced, well written, well acted episode.
So when it opened with Vanson, what did you think?
I'll share with you the phrase that I wrote down, because I was just like, each of these episodes has taken a really different approach, but I said a very different but striking cold open.
Yeah, I was talking about in the last one with you that the series needed to be more specific in how it visually presents itself. And this episode nailed it. I thought the set looked great. Like, their bunks, I thought looked great. The Saratoga in general looked excellent in this episode. Every time we were walking around there, in fact, it was so good looking, so striking. And I bring it towards that cold open because the cold open keeps cutting back and forth between inside the Saratoga, outside, and in space. But the visuals were actually very appealing here, where a part of me was saddened to leave the Saratoga, to leave space and go to this planet where we were just running around in some industrial plant of some sort. And not to say that wasn't good. I mean, they used these locations very well, but just the absolute difference in episodes when it comes to visual presentation was very, very clear to me. And that cold open was excellent because it told you everything you needed to know.
Yep.
This is a Vanson episode. We are going to be dealing with her backstory that was presented in the pilot, was one of the more compelling elements of the pilot, and we are going to grab it by the horns and really delve into it. And unlike the last episode with West, we were constantly saying we need to humanize this character. We need to understand the psyche of this person. We understand it on a kind of on paper what this character is supposed to be, but
we
the
don't
show
feel it.
but the show hasn't put us in his boots.
Yeah.
This opening dream sequence, her monologue, her waking up and covered in sweat and afraid in the middle of the night, did that all within 2 minutes, while the previous episode failed to do that in the 45 minutes. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
So your overall thoughts, so when it opened up saying this is going to be a Vanson-centric episode, this is going to be a Shane episode, what were your first, what were some other impressions you had upon that?
I was just excited. I was like, I am tired of these West stories. I want to get to know somebody else. And you've alluded to the fact that particularly Vanson gets built upon. So I was just like, oh yes, somebody else. Somebody else. And it is done in a very deliberate manner. It isn't seamless. I wouldn't go that far, but it is a very driven episode. Like, it has a driving force and it keeps on going and going. And I was left thinking about the mechanics occasionally.
When you say mechanics, in what sense?
The building up the stakes aspect of this episode, I like just after certain scenes, I'm like, and now we've gone up a notch, and now we've gone up a notch.
Yeah.
And like, I was just very cognizant and aware of those things.
Yeah, and
it wasn't a seamless
well
roller coaster up.
Can I challenge that for a moment? Because I loved that, honestly. But I want to challenge that for a moment and just get your takes and thoughts on this statement. Is it more noticeable because of the quality of this episode? Or is it more noticeable because the ramping up of the stakes were almost non-existent in the previous two that we've watched?
I don't know. I just blamed myself. I was just like, I am thinking about this as a produced piece of media.
Yeah, I think I look at it from the previous two episodes, had especially the one we just watched, The Farthest Man from Home, had very little ramping up of the stakes where, you know, we get to the ad break stings and you really are keen to know what they're going to do next. How are our heroes going to overcome this obstacle? How is Vanson going to grapple with her demons? Yes, I also noticed the mechanics of it too, and I applauded it and cheered it because they were tried and true methods of storytelling. I fist pumped. I clapped and I was saying, you kick these robots' asses at so many points in this because it got me invested in the mental space of our lead character because they offered multitudes of nuance to Vanson. It wasn't just she's triggered from these nightmares and she wants to kick Silicate ass. There's so much going on here, from her worried about being a leader, her worrying about her death, her on and on it goes. There's so many nuances to her, so many different layers and angles to her grief and her psyche and her need for revenge. It wasn't
a very
just
complicated character.
and it wasn't just she's Captain Ahabbing it.
No.
She's not leading them into unnecessary danger for the sake of her own revenge. That is there, though, but it isn't the key driving force of this one. It is a part of it, but it is one of the many parts of it. This is a beautiful tapestry of an episode. To me,
It's a story about Vanson,
mm-hmm,
but it's still happening in the world of Space Above and Beyond. The world doesn't fall apart or
mm-hmm.
drop to the wayside. This story happens to our crew, and it is mainly about Vanson.
I, and so are you, are forgiving of limitations when it comes to being able to put the ambition on the screen, because this is 90s television sci-fi. They don't have the biggest budget in the world. We are forgiving of that to a certain extent. Not everybody is, but there are some visuals that, even with the limitations of technology and budget, hit across. Her spinning through space was
I was like,
one of
this
those that worked.
This is better than this should be. Like, this show doesn't deserve this.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Because I was like, wait, this doesn't look like shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it is that little image, her lost, flailing in the vacuum of space after seeing the sun extinguish and die, and she doesn't understand why. It is magnificent in what I have praised Space Above and Beyond for in the previous episodes. It is visually telling us what needs to be told for the episode. That dream sequence, that nightmare of hers, not just the flashbacks that fill us in on the character backstory, but this spinning through space is her character. She is a character that is going to be in a cycle, in a loop. She is lost and flailing about trying to find the meaning to things. She wants to know
her place in things.
Her place. She wants to know why they killed her parents. She wants to know why the sun is extinguished. She doesn't want to die in the vacuum of space, but also she wants to die. She wants it. She wants to die with a purpose, though. And she can't figure one out. There is a moment in one of the commentary tracks that actually highlights this very, very articulately, where the creators talked about how they admitted that they didn't know the characters well enough when they were writing the show until they got, obviously, the actors to portray them, but the music informed them.
I was thinking about the score a lot in this.
Heavily.
Because it just is it's just right. Where it's informative and persuasive and emotive enough, but in a gentle way.
Yeah.
And it just feels so, pardon the pun, attuned to the show.
Yeah, it is attuned to the show. They talked about how Vanson, in particular, the musical score that Shirley Walker gave to them, locked in who Vanson is, where the description of it was the music reminds us of a dog chasing its tail, and that's Vanson. She's chasing her tail and she's never going to catch it. The tail is revenge. She's always going to be chasing. She's stuck in this loop where she knows that she can't, but yet she's somehow still going to. And we get that with this, where we start the episode with a nightmare and we still end an episode with a nightmare. It didn't wash off. This isn't just wrapped up neatly in a little bow. She's still wounded. She's still haunted and damaged from the experiences of her life. And she is still stuck where she was, but hopefully she can grow and develop out of it. But they admit as writers that the music was actually one of the motivators to understand these characters as well as the cast themselves, where the cast tells you so much about them. Wang, for instance, I feel has elevated so much as a character within these 3 episodes. In the first one, he was non-existent. Last episode, he was minorly there. And although he wasn't the savior of the episode here, I felt he really stood out a lot more. He had a lot more definition to him. I liked the dude.
I was just like, yeah, he's doing his thing. He's being his person.
And his person is great because he is the comedy guy and the straight man. Isn't that cool?
Yep.
He's the straight man to Cooper's silliness, where he has to mature up when Cooper's around because Cooper's a little bit too dopey for his sensibilities as the goofy guy who loves sports. And he has to explain how the world works for Cooper. I think that's a nice dynamic where the Wang in another show would be kind of the little brother of the group.
Yeah.
But here he has to be the more mature brother to someone like Hawks, which I think is rather interesting because
neat.
You look at Hawks and you think he's going to be, he's the James Dean type character. He's going to be the broody, mature, angsty-filled one who's seen darkness in the world. He's a tank. He's experienced bigotry, so that you would assume means that he's more informed about the grittiness of the world around them. But he's still very much in the dark on how the world works around them. And so you have characters like Wang who are there to inform him of such things.
The in vitro platoons were dissolved when I was born. Why should I care?
AIs were manufactured to be servants and soldiers, walking PCs.
Sounds familiar.
In vitros are human.
AIs are machines, designed to be visually pleasing while programmed to comprehend abstract concepts. Philosophy, theology, ethics. They could understand these ideas, but they were not allowed to originate new ideas. Their superior intelligence was totally learned.
So we eventually go to McQueen shows up at one point because
he fucking rocks.
No.
Because he fucking rocks.
You know who rocks though? Hawks. Late at night, he gets his CD player, so now he can play his CDs.
Early in the morning.
Who knows? It's early somewhere. It's in space. And he puts his punk CD into the player and just starts rocking out, and everyone wakes up pissed off at him in varying ways, except for Vanson. Vanson just looks at him, slightly amused by it all. She doesn't have to say much to get the point across.
But I like that Vanessa's the one that
gets up.
Yeah.
She immediately. Well,
I also like the physicality, the way that she gets out of her bunk.
I want to again praise this episode for doing something that the other ones failed at. Again, subtlety. We see on her bunk, we've seen in previous episodes, she has a big family. We see that. And that action spoke as the sister who's had to get out of bed
she's
to stop
the
one of her little brothers doing some bullshit.
She's the one that would get blamed if anything went wrong. So she's the one that's like, oh fuck, nobody else is gonna do this. I'll handle this.
Yeah, I thought that was a great little moment. And I mean, it's Hawks just doing a weird thing. What do you think about that? They've done that in each episode where Hawks does just something that's a little weird, but not too abstractly weird.
Underexperienced at being a human.
Okay, yeah.
That's the way than I feel like it is.
Yep. So we get, luckily, because script convenience, that's when McQueen opens the door and he's like, "Hey, everybody, it's me, the best character in the show. I'm here. I'm here now. It's me, McQueen, the sexiest character in the show. And I've got a job for you because I'm the chief. I'm going to throw the case on the desk and you're going to solve it this week." I realized in this episode, is that what McQueen's function is in the show, where he's the guy that is in the beginning of the episode, maybe a little bit in the middle, but at the end as the guy who gives them the job. And he doesn't do anything because he's on the ship. He's the guy who gives them the task. Hey, A-Team. Hey, Charlie's Angels. So on and so forth. Here's the mission for today.
Hey, Totally Spies.
Hey, Totally Spies. Yeah, here's the mission for today. But we get the briefing of, we've got to go down here. We've got to help this mining operation because they're getting helium-3, which is vital to...
rocket fuel.
Is that a real thing? I feel like helium-3 or helium stuff has been established in at least other science fiction as like important to travel and energy. Isn't that what the film Moon is about, where he's on the moon and they're like getting helium-3 off the moon? Something or rather like that. I swear I've heard this phrase used before. But I like this scene too because it has another one of my favorite elements, and I'll throw it over to you, which is West bitches about how they aren't allowed to go in the front line of battle, and McQueen does the thing we love so much, which is put him in his place.
And it's also like, well, yeah, you fuckwit. There's all of these behind-the-scene aspects to war, not just frontline glory, which is usually the perception of war that we see and is experienced and glorified over and over and over again, which is, part of the audience understanding where West is coming from.
Yeah, I understand. And he says, "You're in charge, you're the Xer, you're this, off you fuck now.
You're honcho."
Yeah, you're honcho.
I
You're head honcho.
not commander, but honcho. I really love...
Well, she's not a commander, so...
I really love the little shifts in language. Like, Exo is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
But honcho instead of commander or leader, whatever, and Mike's instead of minutes.
We're assuming it's minutes, yeah. And they have specific distance as well. I didn't write that down, where they have like measurement of distance, and I guess it has to be different for space, I imagine.
Yeah,
and,
it's like kilometers / something.
Yeah, and they use real technology for some of it, like a LiDAR is a real thing that measures like light and stuff. Let's talk about when Vanson pulls McQueen aside to talk about how she's not too sure that she should be in charge of the mission. What did you think of this interaction between these two characters? Because I think it's pretty clear that these two characters are the most level-headed and mature people in the show. So having a conversation between these two characters is always going to be a fascinating thing, because it's two sensible people talking to each other.
Yeah. I really liked it. I was a bit kind of dubious at first because it's just so blunt. And then it goes deeper than that. Like, it has that kind of false ending of their conversation, then it comes back and he's like, no, there's no such thing as luck. It's all fucking bullshit.
It's on you.
You are in control. You decide. And I was like, oh, you did the bullshit fast, so you had time for this thematic statement.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. It's very blunt to begin with, because she says to him that, I'm not too sure, I'm probably not going to come back. I may
And,
die. I'm looking.
yeah.
She says to him in
It's
a
like,
random.
everybody fucking deals with that. Suck it up.
Well,
You're either gonna come back or you're not.
yeah. Well, just because you're saying it offhandedly, I do have to hammer in for myself, and I don't know if you feel the same. But the way the actor of McQueen says those lines, when you read the lines, you could read them as you just said them. But the way he emphasizes his points make it just so he's warmly empathetic, but he's saying it still in that military way of talking.
I'm not your friend. I'm your boss.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is deeply important. This is me motivating you. He's an intense motivator.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that never breaks your eye contact with you. That's what is his deal. He never breaks that eye contact with you. And he is very forward in what he says of, well, you either don't come back or you do come back. It is as simple as that. And what I love about it is, and yes, it gets you to that thematic point that we are talking about, which you just mentioned. But what I like about it from a character stance is McQueen is no bullshit. We've seen that already, but I just love how this character is written and played when it comes to that, in which, no, there is no predetermination.
No.
There is no luck. You do your thing. A plus B equals C. There is no other way of looking at these things. You don't need to overcomplicate it for yourself. If you don't come back, then you don't come back, and that's on you. If you do come back, that's excellent because you're doing your job and you'll be here and you'll be motivating the team. I believe in you because you are good. You are a thoughtful person, a team leader, somebody who is quick on their feet. All of this has been demonstrated with her character already, and McQueen's been there to see it, so it adds up.
We've seen it, and we know that he has as well, so it doesn't feel like the writer's giving her a pep talk, so she perseveres and keeps going despite her concerns.
No.
And it's not doing the thing which it could have done of being like, no, her dreams are prophetic because this is sci-fi.
But it does have play around with that a little because the things that we see flash in her dream do happen in the episode, but it doesn't comment upon that. It doesn't have her pondering at the end going, am I prophetic? It leaves it there for you, the audience, to tinker with over the next coming weeks or however long they want to play it out or not. It is up to you. What another aspect of his conversation that I think is excellent though is the fact that he is the conversation she has, I should say rather, is it shows the vulnerability of her character. She is actually open to say it. She isn't doing the typical thing of this genre where she's bottling it up and her emotional actions are saying it without saying the words, and then she's
not hiding it from everybody, which is a thing that
West knows. Eventually, she's not hiding it. She will say it to the right people.
Yes, I was going to say that in a lot of other things, they don't have the hero of the story open up about their trauma or about what weird dreams they're having or the fact that they're going through maybe a bit of a PTSD relapse sort of shit, whatever the fuck their actual terminology is for that. But she doesn't. She's honest with people when it's the right time and the right moment.
Another reason I'm a fan of this episode, evidently, is what we're striking upon here, which are touching the nerve of, which is she skips over the dramatic fondling the writers could have had we've seen this before. We know what it is, and she skips over it to communicate effectively and properly with the people that she needs to, and it makes her far more likable and intelligent character to me. We are watching Battlestar Galactica as we are viewing this, and the character of Starbuck and Apollo infuriate me to tears sometimes because we, the audience, already know before the show tells us why they're doing the bullshit that they are, but we have to wait the extra 45 or 50 minutes for them to figure it out and the writers to be like, guys, did you figure it out too? And because they refuse to let the characters openly express themselves and communicate because that isn't fun.
Even though both of those characters, a part of them is their bluntness.
Yes,
and being upfront
and their camaraderie,
calling out bullshit,
and their camaraderie. And it's not just Battlestar, but there's so many. Star Trek Discovery does this all the time.
So many shows do that because it's convenient.
It is.
It draws out drama.
Yeah, it's not just convenient. It is what is expected. I've seen it in so many differing shows. It's just characters don't communicate their feelings properly to other characters because we have to make a drama happen out of it. And I like so much that she tells McQueen she's not worried about looking vulnerable or weak or getting booted out or anything of that nature. She just says it straight up. She says to Nathan West straight up as well what is going on. And I thought it made her character stronger than weaker.
The Silicates murdered my mother and father, and I'm
Afraid?
they're destined to kill me. It's so weird. I've waited my whole life for this. I never thought that I'd get a chance to confront them. Now,
You're honcho. We all respect you. It's your call.
And we get nice little moments of her struggling to keep it together. At first, we don't even realize it because they get down onto the planet and we got Wang with his football, right? He lights up his football, he throws it. It's a nice little character beat reminding us that he's a sports guy and he's a funny guy, and people are kind of just joking around and having a little laugh and playing it carefree and loose. And Vanson sees this eventually and she snaps into that military role, and she's like, no, we're not gonna let the daylight burn, or
following McQueen's lead.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, yeah, this might seem like a cakewalk. It's not. You gotta take it seriously. When you don't take things seriously,
that's when you die.
Yep.
That's when it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And she has to break them up in terms of their inherent kind of jovial, hey, we're just here because this is a nothing job. I'm Nathan West and I'm not getting to fight on the front line. I'm Wang and I don't take that much seriously. And I'm Cooper Hawks, where I just go, what son is there? I'm kind of insubordinate. Yeah, she has to snap into place, and
after all, he is there as a kind of joke.
And
so why not make a joke?
We have to talk about, before this, they even get down to the planet, there's a nice talking about the mechanics of the episode, building up the stakes. We have the shootout of the unknown anomaly on the Razor.
Yeah,
everyone disagrees on what it is.
One that stood out to me because it just moves the dial that little bit, and it reaffirms the uncertainty of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, well, what is going to happen to Vance, and in particular, what do those dreams mean?
Mm-hmm.
How true are they?
And no one believes her.
Yeah.
When she says what it is.
Yeah. And it's just like, is she right?
Mm.
Or is she just looking for it?
I didn't even think of it in that manner. I looked at it too much in the realm of no one believes her because none of them have experienced the horrors of the AI.
Yep.
She has personally experienced it. She knows their call and their noises and everything about them, while Wang and West and obviously Cooper, they don't know anything about that. So they look at it as kind of a joke. Oh, it's a comet. Oh, no, it's the Chigs. Oh, and they blow it up and cheer for themselves, and they start joking around like, yeah, I took down an alien mothership. No, it was a comet, and Vanson knows. And she's the leader of this group, but they didn't take her seriously. And because nobody took it seriously, she kind of has to, in part, shrug it off, but she doesn't really. And to go what you're saying, yeah, there's that element of, is she hunting for this? Is this what she wants it to be? And she's going to force it to be that somehow. And, well, in the end, it's a nice little, if we look at the silicate plot, it's actually a nice little tie-through on that of what they were up to, of coming down and attacking these miners and flying to and from to get more of the material off of the planet and off of the mining colony. And, yeah, it's a nice little dialing up, as you say, of tension and of what the plot's going to be, because obviously we know what the plot is going to be from a character sense. This is going to be a Vanson dealing with her trauma, but at this point we don't know what the thrust is. What's going to be the inciting incident? We're going to go down to this mining planet. Oh, the silicates have taken it over. And that's our way of giving the audience and our characters that little tip off that that's what's going to happen. But they do a good job, I think, when they get down there, of building up the suspense of when the silicates finally do attack.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it.
Really?
Not like I wasn't expecting them to already be there.
Oh, okay.
I was expecting them to come in at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I was surprised by that.
And we have all of our characters doing the military thing, surveying here, overlooking here, just joking to each other. There's that one guy who smacks Vanson on the shoulder when she's not looking, and it freaks her out, and he just kind of laughs it off like, ha ha ha, isn't this fun? We're just doing the thing that you told us to do, but it's not serious because nothing's happening. Even the person who gets killed, her and Cooper have a little back and forth about like, oh, I hate it when it's quiet. All you can hear is your own breathing. Yeah, crazy stuff. Being in space is nuts. Oh, let's throw footballs in the air and comment about how we wish there was an expansion team out here. And West being like, God, was it 5 million years and still no light?
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice moment from West. Hey, can we take a detour for a second and talk about West in this episode? I liked the dude. I thought he was a much better right-hand man and secondary character for the lead. I thought he was actually a very wise and solid character here. If I didn't know what he was like in the previous 2 episodes, and I tuned in this week, I would have said to you, oh, I can't wait to see an episode about that guy. He's so level...
Yes, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
He's so level-headed. And he seems like a real, grounding force for Vanson. Oh, man, I can't wait to see an episode about him and his struggles and why he's so wise. And
yeah.
And it's not to say that his character is inconsistent to what it's been in the previous 2 episodes. It's just when you shine the light away from him, it does cast him in a different way.
We don't get too much of him.
What did you think of him, though?
Yeah, he was pretty good. Like, I was just like, yeah, you're doing your thing. You're being you, and it's not annoying. I care about the role that you play in this episode. I don't care about you going after Kylan because you're not going to fucking find her right now. But the stakes of Shane's story feel much more attainable. And that's much more interesting. And the way that West's previous experiences play into this is interesting. Because it's like, it matters that this is the third episode and that he's had those experiences in the pilot and the previous one in particular. And it's like, yeah, this is writing, this is planning, this matters.
It does. So where do we go from here? So they're on the planet. They get attacked by the silicates, and they retreat back, and they figure out what the silicates are doing. Talk us through. What are the silicates up to? What do they discover they are doing? And what did you think of it? Because this is a force that we've heard about in the show as a previous thing. Like, remember the AI wars?
Yeah.
And now the AIs
that was
are
so
here.
long ago, but they left us with these stupid tanks.
yeah, they left us with the new people to oppress.
What the hell? He's a tank. What are you doing with them? They farmed you to kill us because they didn't want to die. You're a sucker. You don't owe them anything. Give up the other two.
They're to steal what our heroes are there to protect. They want the helium-3 for themselves. So that they can make a profit.
Well, yeah. With who?
With the Chigs.
That's what they theorize.
That's what they theorize.
They worry that they'll sell it to the Chigs.
Yeah. I was like, how would they... See, my theory is that the Chigs aren't fully aliens, that they were created by the AIs.
Oh, you think so?
I don't know why. I just... Like, just the way that they frame... Like... Just the way that I've taken and latched onto a certain line from the pilot when he's like, we're alone in the universe. I think it's a Red Dwarf style thing where it's like they're actually encountering something that's a responsibility of humanity.
Yeah, I can understand that, because we do have the AIs and the tanks as examples of that.
Yeah.
Of creatures made by us who have turned against us, or we have turned against them in some way, shape,
And
or
I think
form.
maybe it's also because we were watching Battlestar, so
That is a factor. And
but I would appreciate if it was just, plain aliens. But I also am like, I don't know if we would get any answers about that with the fact that it's cut short.
Well, yes, it's left ambiguous, and I can see why they didn't do what I'm about to suggest here, because the silicates don't need to explain themselves. But I was waiting for that moment, instead of Wang theorizing that they're going to sell it to the Chigs, because it's just saying that line doesn't add up a lot. Like, it doesn't give us an understanding of, one, like, how does money work in this universe, and do the
How
Chigs...
do they communicate with the Chigs?
Well, they're AIs. I think they could figure it out. But what I'm going to say is, I think it would have been better if Wang theorized, and or if the silicates outright said, we are grabbing this helium-3, and we're going to go to the Chigs to try and form a relationship with them by giving them a valuable resource. And you can use all of that as still as a justification for their mentality of taking a risk, because isn't that all very risky? And they would do this for what reason? Who knows? You can make it up. I would imagine that it's still a part of their key programming, which is to kill humanity. How do you do that? You team up with the people who's doing a bang-up job of it right now. And so that is how you could clean up a little bit of a messy line in this context of the singular episode. Now, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say, like, maybe we'll see in the future how it plays out, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
I was
it's
just
one of those things where
okay, that makes sense, but also it would make sense that they have marooned themselves in space, fleeing humanity. They also need fucking rocket fuel.
Yes, I understand that's a viewpoint too, and I agree that could be the reason, but I do like the thing here where they've made a rebellious guerrilla tactic strike on an outpost that they know is made by humans. This is their first attack, it seems, since they left.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do that, you need it to have a more overarching purpose than they just need fuel.
Yes.
Because you
yes,
need them
I
to be
understand why it's more than that. But the episode has room for that interpretation still.
I just don't think any of our characters would think that, knowing that the silicates
Yes.
are more than
Because
just
they're
that.
more evil than that.
They're more evil. They have crosshairs for eyes, which we'll get into silicates a bit in a moment when it comes to them, because we have a whole note on silicate lore. But we're just kind of running around the base. Our characters separate off. There's a bunch of firefights and dodging and weaving, and characters get captured.
Choreographed and shot very well.
Very well. I thought it was meticulously done. Far more. I don't know how to say it, enrapturing than the previous ones in the show, where I really was cheering and feeling everything going on when it came to their action, where I was like, yeah, you throw that smart grenade. I think that's a cool idea. It's like a homing grenade. I haven't seen that before, really. So that was a neat idea. But some of our heroes get captured. They're threatened with torture from our silicates, and
They play blackjack.
Jack and hookers, and while that's happening,
Where was the hooker?
well, one of the silicates is played by an adult film star, so not a hooker. She's just she's just a porn star. But while they're doing that, Vanson and West have been left on the loose to try and bring oxygen back to the base, which is a nice ticking clock element. And they do it well enough where there came a point where our characters are struggling a lot because the air is thinning out, and I actually thought that was well done. I commended the episode on setting that up as a stake, where oxygen is very important in this storyline.
But not
with them
being
in
like
their
our levels, they're this, and we're going to run out of air, and this. Like, they don't
overbake it.
Yes, but they don't refer to each tick or tock of the hand as it's getting lower and lower. It's like we check in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be really frustrating, in particular when the air is running out. When they're like, we have 5 minutes left.
Yeah. Because...
And then it's like 10 minutes later in the show, and you're like, you should be dead.
You should be dead, boy. But Vanson and West find an injured silicate, one that's sparking on the floor, and they hack into its brain, and they give us some more silicate lore, which we'll get into in a second. But I rather liked that moment as a way of our main characters learning that the other characters were captured.
Yeah.
Because the silicates are on like a Bluetooth Wi-Fi network where they're kind of all connected up. So them tuning into their friends getting tortured was a nice way of our characters finding that out, rather than the silicates getting the drop on them and bringing them in, or the silicates being like, come out, we've got your friends. It still allowed Vanson and West to have the upper hand.
Yes.
Using the AIs against themselves, which, again, clever science fiction being used here with the military stuff.
It makes sense that West can figure all of that out, because he trained for a fucking space mission.
Mm-hmm. And he's a techie kind of guy.
Yeah.
Him
it
and
doesn't
Vanessa
feel like,
are the most
he's
techie.
pulling that out of his ass. It's like, no, I buy this.
Him and Vanessa seem the most tech-savvy out of our group.
Yeah, she's the one that identifies the bogey.
And she's the engineer in their group, so it makes sense, but she was being tortured, too much being tortured. And they eventually get the drop on the silicates. A bunch of firefight happens. Characters get separated. Vanson is on her own and she confronts a silicate and she wants to know why her family got killed, which is the recurring question in the episode. Why them? Why were they so important? Because we knew from the pilot and from this episode that her family were military. They were involved in secret operations. So there was a looming mystery of why were my parents the ones assassinated by the silicates? Tell me, what did you think was going to be the answer? And walk us through what the answer was and your overall thoughts on it.
I didn't think that it was going to be part of a bigger plan. I didn't think it was going to be part of a conspiracy because they just said the chance stuff too many times.
That's their deal.
Too many times for me to go, oh yeah, they planned it out and hunted them down. And then as soon as they were like, it's a coin flip, I'm like, complete sense. Makes complete sense with what they've set up.
Mm.
And it makes it even more frustrating for Vanson because she has a reason, but there is no reason.
She needs there to be some big reason to make it so that
It
the
matters.
pain makes sense.
Yeah, it should matter. It matters so much to me. There should be a reason why I was subjected to this, why my parents had to die.
And if I could go on a sidetrack for a moment, if I could sidetrack us for a second, that's why I love how Jonathan Kent dies in Superman comics traditionally. That's why I hate Zack Snyder's version of this, where
The heart attack.
he just dies of something that you can't stop, Superman. You can't stop that. Or when Sam Beckett travels back in time and meets his father and he tries to stop his father from eating wrong and smoking and doing all of these things that will eventually lead to his heart attack. But those aren't things that you can stop or save. Those are things beyond your comprehension. And there's a level of, you want to make sense out of things, but that's just not how it happens. Sometimes it is just the
That's
way
not how the world works.
It's how things fall into place. And Vanson's been wanting some big reason to have a conspiracy to say that her parents were important enough to be killed. But the actual answer is it was an act of cruelty for the sake of it because they were killing people to make terror. They were terrorists. That's how they described them in the episode. They were rebellion, guerrilla tactics, terrorists. This is also a nice thing too of the coin flip. It's brutal, it's sad. It all relies on the actress's face hearing this information instead of intense flash. It doesn't cut back to the silicates in the car outside the house flipping the coin. We just hear it and we've got a lock on that actress reacting to it.
Because
that's more important. That's the shot you need.
Yeah, that's what matters.
That's why we're here. We're here to see Vanson get this uncomfortable truth and flip out over it. That's the point of the episode. That's the key that you're here to see turned.
The climax.
It's a crescendo of it all. And I adore that because it's just cruel. It's just this nasty thing because she's had to live her life trying to find a reason and she's put all this hatred towards the silicates and it is just, they flipped a coin. My parents' life, my life, was altered because they flipped a coin.
My life could have ended.
Yeah.
They wanted to kill me too. The parents sacrificed themselves. To also save their children.
And she thinks that she's destined to be killed by the silicates for multitudes of reasons. Obviously, she feels like she's locked into a war with them forever until either they're all dead or she's dead. But also, She thinks that there's something to her parents' death that's bigger, that they needed to kill her too, but they never got her. She got away, and they lost. And if they ever find her, they'll kill her, but that's not
Weird
true.
sort of justification of her survivor's guilt.
Oh, yeah, because you're trying to make sense of everything.
It's like, I survived, but I won't forever.
They'll be
because
after
it'll
me.
catch up to me.
Mm.
Because I was meant to die there too.
They killed my family. Because a coin came up tails. They don't leave this rock.
Shane! You got your answer. Okay? Now you know why. And look where you are. Revenge ain't gonna end it. There's thousands of them out there in space. You can't kill them all. Just drive on, or your fear will come true, and they'll kill you without even lifting a weapon.
And she just goes on a fucking rampage. She's stabbing that silicate. She glides down from the rooftop and beats up a few more. She shoots a bunch off screen in a badass moment where, again, the commentary stresses that wasn't done for budgetary reasons. They had a lot of the budget put aside for shooty stuff, as we will see and as we have seen. It was more for the dramatic effect, and I think it worked spectacularly. Because
Agreed.
It was one of those things where the hero shot of them looking up, and it's just her standing there with these guns. And
It's great.
And she says to them, "Come on, there's more to kill. Pick up those weapons if you're out of ammunition, and we'll go kill some more." And West having to take her aside and say, "Hey, come on. Get your head in the game. We've got to do our job. There's a bigger war at stake here than this. That you can't kill all of the
It's very
silicate."
satisfying because she did try to run at the start, but now she's tasted blood and she's just blind to everything else.
And we're rooting for that. We're rooting for her to keep going after the silicates, to have the battles and the fights, because it's badass. These hero shots and the swelling score and the music. And she grabs that big bazooka thing that Hawk set up earlier in the episode. She goes outside and blows them out of the sky. And everyone looks in awe of what she's done. She's commended as a hero for stopping this from happening and letting them get away. And did it help her in the end? No. She still has nightmares. They're new nightmares now, but they're still nightmares about the same issue. She did all of this girl boss, badass stuff, and it didn't change it. There's no relief. And that's the thing. Revenge doesn't wash it away, is the real thrust of the message here. Just because she killed those silicates, just because she blew those ones out of the sky, she didn't do it for the mission. She didn't do it to even save her friends necessarily. It wasn't
about her current family.
Mm-hmm. It was about her previous family. It was about her. And all of this ties nicely, but it does show us that this character has a lot of demons, and she gave in to the darker side of herself, and it was super efficient as a soldier and to win the day here. But I really think that this tale was a warning for people of like, look, yeah, she's a badass and she saved the day, but at what cost, really? And she's still in the state she's in. If anything, she seems worse off because she seems even more lost about everything. She now knows the answer to the question that's haunted her life, and it's an answer that would never satisfy you.
Nope.
It would only hurt you more. Because there is no satisfying answer to that question that she had, but they still managed
no realistic one to the law that they've set up.
Oh, agreed. And we end the episode with Vanson looking out the window and still seeing that the sun is indeed there. The sun hasn't died. And
Yep.
she's on that little ship. She's little in this big metal tin can in space, flying off.
And I really like the way that there's lots of different ways that they've represented the never-ending nature of revenge. And they state it very explicitly in the episode. But the title, The Dark Side of the Sun, there's no such thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great
There
title.
is no end to revenge. And it's just like, and then they're on this sunless planet.
Oh, man, this episode was so fucking good. We've got silicates. I love the silicates. I think they are an addition to the universe and the show that
Another layer.
They click so well for me, and it's an interesting take on the robots rose up against us and wanted
I love
freedom.
that it wasn't them. I love that it was from some fucking dude who was tired of his boss getting credit. So he's like, I'm gonna fuck you over, bitch.
And humanity in the process. Well,
like, he led to isn't like millions of deaths. With like
countless deaths.
A phrase.
Yeah, take a chance. I have rarely, if ever, seen this be the motivation for a robot uprising. Take a chance, that they look at gambling as their god and their motivator for everything, and that a part of their take a chance is to get freedom and kill humanity. And I like that. I think it's actually a rather neat science fiction concept and a refreshing take on the AIs have turned against us. And yes, a part of the backstory is a guy got fed up, put a virus in their code that said, take a chance, and it led to unforeseen consequences. And you see it here, but even when you hear the pitch of take a chance, this is an adversary that it will be incapable of being one that could be negotiated with. They're incapable of it because you told them to take a chance. And to them, take a chance will mean they'll forever have the ability to start conflict because that's taking a chance. Let's gamble and stab that guy. Let's gamble and destroy humanity. Let's gamble and get all the ships and fly away.
With a maverick.
Right? They are never able to break that. And that's the fundamental drive. Oh man. Talking about the parallels of characters, the silicates are stuck in the cycle, as is Vanson. We get inside the actual brain of a silicate and you hear the programming in its head in a loop saying like, take a chance, kill humanity, take a chance, kill humanity, on and on it goes. And that's Vanson, right? Where she needs to kill the silicate. She needs an answer to why they did this to her. And it's just this loop that's in them, and she has to try and break it while the silicates are incapable of it because they are, as Wang said, I can't remember the exact phrase he used to describe them, but they are these automatons who are there to get information but not actually understand it themselves. They are incapable of forming new ones. They can just store it, and that's with this as well in this moment in the show. They can't create. So here they can't create an understanding that's different than take a chance, kill humanity. And I think that is, Maverick is a great way to describe it. Here they're pirates and rebels and bands, and I think that's cool too, that they're not like the Chigs, that they're a militarized unit. they are just ragtag little groups of silicates that do whatever the fuck they want for whatever reason. There is no motivation to them other than chance. Yeah, silicates. What do you, overall takes and thoughts on what you're hoping to see from this as an addition to the series? Because this is another adversary. We have shady corporation, evil aliens, and now the AIs from the AI Wars.
I think they're neat.
Mm?
You've said almost everything else that I wanted to say about them.
What do you think about how they look like and how they act?
Again, I just think they're neat. I like the effect on the eyes, the way that they act, the kind of sort of almost modulation that the actors use on their voice, as well as like there's some additional editing.
Oh yeah, the inflections
happening, like the way that they're delivering their lines is very consistent.
It is. There's a very melodic way to it, and they don't over-emote, but they don't under-emote. There's this...
It's not like, I am AI.
Or, I am crazy, man. Woo-hoo-hoo. They nail it. And what do you think about... I like the crosshair eyes. I think they're cool. I can understand why somebody gets turned off by it, because we talked about this...
It goes for it.
We talked about this with Babylon 5, and you know what? I'm going to praise Space Above and Beyond for this, because they don't do this too much. I guess you could say the Chigs and the Silicates are this, where in Babylon 5, say, or Star Trek, it's hard to sell somebody on watching a sci-fi show because they look up a picture of it, and they go, ugh. Oh,
yeah.
the guy with the hair?
Yeah.
Or like...
those forehead ridges.
7 of 9? Like, well, that's a turn on for people. Oh, I want to watch the show with the dominatrix. And you get embarrassed a little bit, where it's like, yeah, this is for goofy, nerdy shit. And I could see somebody grabbing up a picture of a silicate with the crosshair eyes and going, oh, this is nerd shit.
Fate's a bitch.
I like this episode. I'm giving it a yum yum.
Yum yum.
It's a yum yum from me too.
Yum yum.
If every episode was like this, I'd be having so much more anger towards it being cancelled. This was a spectacular episode. I barely had any problems with it, if I'm honest with you. There were some moments of little bit of cheesiness that went a bit too far from me, or a line or two of dialogue that could have been trimmed out. Exposition could have been delivered a little bit more smoothly, because there does come the point where it's like, here's silicate lore from Wang.
It's like dumped in your lap, and it's like, oh!
The actor knows how to deliver it, but that's a strength. Praise to the guy who plays Wang. He knows how to deliver exposition, but
paces it just right.
The writers could have drip-fed this information in a way that could have been smoother to go down, but it's a season 1 show. They always have trouble with this. And as said, there's been so much strides in this singular episode about the world building and storytelling methods we have preferred from this. This was 90% of the episode was that stuff. So, of course, I enjoyed it and you enjoyed it. So next episode is called Mutiny. Episode 4 is what we'll be talking about next time.
Turn against McQueen.
You think they're going to turn against McQueen? It's called Mutiny, Rachel. Since you haven't seen the show before, we're not going to read out the DVD description for that until next episode, but we're going to play the little game of what do you think Mutiny is. I cannot say, because I remember this episode. I remember this episode. I'm not saying like that means it's the greatest thing in the universe or the worst thing. I'm just saying like I know what mutiny is. Thoughts, Rachel? Do you think it's about them mutinying against McQueen or Commodore Ross, who I sorely missed in this episode? By the way, I missed Ross. I cried. I was like, where's Ross? But you were saying?
I feel like it's gonna be on the Saratoga. I don't feel like it'll be anywhere else, or them cleaning up a mutiny.
Okay.
That's...
So you think they're gonna have a mutiny on the Saratoga? Okay. Thoughts of why? 4th episode, mutiny?
I don't know. I'm going to say that's just my guess.
Just give me a quick pitch of what you think they would be mutinying about, just for funsies.
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Do you think?
It makes no sense.
Do you think it's because McQueen does too many farts, and they're like, we can't stand it, McQueen. You fart too much. Get him, boys! And then they just start wailing on McQueen, but he's too strong for them because he's a tank, let's never forget. And he, like, throws them up above his shoulders, and West is whimpering in the corner because he's too much of a pussy to mutiny. That would actually be an interesting story if the crew all decide to mutiny. So no. Okay, this is my pitch for an episode of a season 2 episode of Space Above and Beyond, right? If this went for the second season, because I think if you have a mutiny story, like a proper, like, one, and again, I can't even, like, deny what you're saying, but I'm saying, like, if you had a proper mutiny episode where we've had a whole season of build-up of why the crew needs to fight back against the system, and they all want a mutiny, except for West, because he's too much of a pansy, that would actually be an interesting episode. That would be an interesting conflict where it's like they need West to join them in a mutiny, but he's too unsure of everything. That would be an interesting character conflict. Morgan, I know you're listening. I know James Wong isn't listening. Write that down when you get the chance to redo the show in another 50 years, when anyone who stomped this into the grave is long gone. Give that as an episode. But that is all we've got for you. Thank you so much for listening to us talk about Space Above and Beyond. We'd love to know your thoughts on this episode. You can contact us in a variety of ways. We're on the social medias under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We'll be posting stuff about this and other things. We, of course, have got our email at yumyumpod@gmail.com, so you can drop us a line there about whatever you feel. And we, of course, have the Patreon, where we do all this content. This episode is up on Patreon first, and then eventually comes out onto the main feed. So by the time this comes out on the main feed, we would have already done all of Space Above and Beyond, and you can listen to it all. So come on over and support the show, you fools. You foolish fools. You rascals, you little rascals. Rate and review us on whatever podcast hosting site allows you to do so. But that is it. We are out of here. I've got to go to bed, Rachel. And, actually, I have an apology to make.
Yeah?
You have an apology to make.
What?
We have one person to apologize to. We didn't say it at the end of the last episode. We were too emotional to say it at the end of the last episode, but,
yeah.
You know what I'm going to say? Rachel knows. She's tearing up.
I can't.
You can't say his name.
I can't.
Guys?
I can't. I'm sorry.
Yep. This is an emotional time.
I just...
We were so close to forgetting about our friend Pags. We love you, Pags.
Forever in our hearts.
You were played by an Australian actor that I could easily get in contact with because he's on Instagram, but I love you, Pags. I miss you. I wish you were the lead of the show. R.I.P. Pags. Or R.I. Pags.
Here's to Pags.